The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of that legendary program that we like to refer to as Keefer and Kurre. Kip Keefer and Tony Kurre on the TKR network. And, of course, any place that you seek out your podcast, you can access this on all the Apple platforms, etc. It's going to be a great day today on the show. I'm going to pretend like I'm just kind of hanging out at a cocktail party and I run into a couple of guys and kind of introduce them and get them back and forth in some dialogue and some memories of those special times in their lives, because both of them are giants in their respective industries and especially in their markets. So, Tony, I'm thrilled to introduce you. Tony Kurre, of course, who, when I came to Birmingham first in the early 90s, was the king of media here. He was the guy everybody listened to. He was, if you walk up right now on the street and ask anybody, you say two words, classic rock, they're going to say Tony Kurre. If we were on Password, that would be the clue. Tony was dominant in the market, did all kinds of great things. And his counterpart, when I grew up in Atlanta, in my late high school years and all through my early adult and first involvement in media, Gary McKee was not only the man, he was beyond the man. He was the most iconic broadcast voice in Atlanta in a time where that city just was booming and came into its own. And he is fondly associated with, in my mind, and so many of my friends and people that I still am very involved with in Atlanta. Gary McKee was absolutely the number one guy on Mount Rushmore of Atlanta broadcasting, as Tony Kurre is here in Birmingham. So it's a thrill for me to have both you guys on today. Tony, introduce yourself to Gary, and you guys get it rolling, and I'll jump in here every once in a while. But I want to hear some of your guys' experiences and stories and remembrances of those times where you guys were right on top of the mountain.
Well, thank you. First of all, incredibly humble for all the kind words you said about both of us. I was not aware of Gary because I was kind of doing my own thing, I'm sure, and I'm assuming that Gary wasn't aware of me, despite the fact that we probably have over 100 years of broadcasting. Okay, well, and I appreciate that. I was kind of into myself, I guess, when I was here in Birmingham, and I was flying that classic rock jet about 90,000 feet above the earth for a long period of time, and I just never landed, and it just kept flying until it crashed about 5 or 6 years ago, and we decided to go into something different, radio. It was funny, and Gary, it's a pleasure. We got a chance to meet and speak with each other several weeks ago, but I was on Fox 6 here locally, WBRC, this morning, and I do this segment called Music Mondays with Tony Kurre, and they were asking me why we don't have as many big summer soundtrack hits, big songs that go with great summer movies. And we were going through Xanadu. We went through The Power of Love. We went through, there's just almost every James Bond movie that's always been released either on Labor Day or Memorial Day. Always had, For Your Eyes Only, always had these, huge soundtrack songs. And I said, one of the reasons is people just don't listen to the radio anymore. They just don't. It's not to say that radio isn't fun. It's not as important as it used to be, although I don't think it is. There's just so many other different things to listen to now. You can listen to anything, anywhere. And because of that, we used to be in that top 40 format where you were going to hear The Power of Love every 45 minutes on every radio station in the market. And so you were going to hear those songs. Those songs were huge because of that. And now, when a movie comes out and it's got a song to it, I couldn't even name the last big music song that was from a movie, not within the last 2 or 3 years, because the only way you'd probably listen to it is maybe occasionally on a radio station in the market, which people aren't listening to anymore, or stream it. Or listen to that particular artist. And so, it's just changed so much. And I really want to get your thoughts, Gary, because I don't know when you exactly started. I started in 1982. I realize you're just
driving a bus when it was 1982.
Yeah. So I wanted to get your thoughts because I really feel like, and based on our longevity, we were both really blessed in that we got a chance to come in and play radio when it was at its most basic. We got to spin 45s, we got to spin LPs, we got to have the carts. They look like 8 tracks carts. And we got the chance to play, spinner records, right? I mean, and if you were in the radio in the 60s and 70s, you didn't have time to pee because every record was 2.5 minutes long.
Yeah.
Until some songs from like Yes came out, and maybe American Pie and Let It Be, where you actually had some time to go smoke a cigarette out back or go call your honey on the other line. But I think we were so joyed to be part of a radio platform and a format where we had live jocks 24 hours a day, and it's just not like that anymore. It's not.
What slot did you work?
I worked mornings for a while. Then my first job was 10 to 2 at night. And then I left and went to Louisville, Kentucky and worked 6 to 10 in the morning. And then I got booted to 7 to midnight. And then I got moved down here to Birmingham to do afternoons. And then I ended up doing morning radio and sports radio for 20 years. And then
What did you do in sports?
we had a morning show. Aldo Greco, who used to play with the Houston Oilers and the Tennessee Titans, and Jay Barker, who at the time in 1992, he had won the last national title. We started a show in 2000. He had won the last national title for the Crimson Tide. So I did a morning show with those two guys. So we had Alabama and Auburn, and I kind of took UAB in the middle, and we had a sports show for 20 years and did really well.
Oh, that's a good shot. That's
Yeah.
a good shot.
Yeah.
Do you teach? Have you? I tried that out. Couldn't do it.
Yeah, I did a lot of career days. I was invited to come to schools and explain, listen, back in my day, if you were married or you had a girlfriend, and she was going to be transferred from one city to another, it was nothing to move to Tupelo and find yourself a radio job by the end of that business day. You just start calling around, say, listen, I'm this guy, I do afternoons or middays in Birmingham, and I'm looking for a job, and they give you a job for 25 or 30 grand a year. Well, there are no jocks anymore. Hey, Kiki, there are no jocks on the air anymore. The last time you came into a radio station, the last time I went to a radio station several weeks ago, there were no jocks, period. There was not one radio personality in the building. As a matter of fact, on Sunday, was it Saturday or Sunday? I texted Kip. Kip was live on the air, and that is an anomaly in the world of radio now. You just don't have
it's crazy.
Anymore. Yeah.
So Gary, why don't you tell us how you got involved in Atlanta and just give everybody your story, because I think it's fascinating.
The music is soured for me. I don't think we have a clinic that could teach stuff with the kids that need to play, and everybody what I was starting out from 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 after that, and I said, oh yeah, I got fired. I'm sorry. I get fired. Here's Gary, and here's Gary, and this guy gets fired. I used to do that because I was always trying something. And I said, God, I could do that. I could do that. I could do that. And I don't, I just started learning that way. And then I've always been a good musician. That was my other side. It was, the other side that I wanted to do. And I put them together, and that's radio, because I'm not that good. Well, I'm good looking now because of all the work. Right. It's not something I wanted to do any. And when I go through the band is the band, this radio station, that radio station. I don't hear radio stations, and I don't even hear the music. It's left me behind, and a lot of the buddies I have, they're always saying, I don't want to dish anybody here, but it's just not radio to me.
I'm glad you said that, because this is not, we're not getting a couple of guys on to talk about the old days and have a pity party and sour grapes against what radio
Absolutely not.
It's just, I mean, when I came into this market, when I came into Birmingham, there were 22 different owners. there were 22 different owners, and we were all trying
Yeah,
to
what are
beat the
they,
hell out of
one?
each. We were all trying to beat the hell out of each other. We were pulling each other's cords. We were taking leaks on each other's outlets from live gigs. We were trying to exploit everything we possibly could do. We were doing stunts. And right now we have 4 owners in this market, 4. And there's one owner that owns the top 5 radio stations. Well, how is competition? There's no competition there. I mean, it's purely a monopoly. And unless you were trying some different things, like sounds like you were trying to do, Gary. And I always heard the old saying, if you weren't really ever in radio until you got fired 3 times. You had to get fired at least 3 times because you weren't trying to do anything different. And until you started trying to do some different things, we were never different. But I remember people getting home from work, and I remember getting on the school bus and listening to a guy named Mark Sebastian who did afternoons at Q102 when I was 15, 16 years old. And that's all I cared about, was getting off of school at 2:17 and getting on the bus and listening to my favorite disc jockey. You just don't have that now. It just doesn't exist unless you're like the Rick and Bubba's of the world, and they've got simulcast through all kinds of different markets and things like that. But those are a rare breed. There's only a few of those left in the United States, and it's just not a lot of them out there. So now we do these things called podcasts. Now everyone's got their own show. And they're a lot harder than what you think, because, when I opened my pie hole, I used to talk to 75,000 people at one time. Now I've had to build my own crowd. So we're doing that, but it's a lot harder. It's a lot more work.
That's humble. I like that about humble. I like the Carson behind you.
Yeah.
And
There you go. That's a great example.
I mean, Carson led everybody,
Mhm.
and there's
That's for
nobody
sure.
to lead anymore. Like there is a lot. We sound old, but we're not.
No.
And that just happened. Really, where did this go? Where did it come from? There are radios from places that we never heard of, that don't even speak our language.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's just, I think of the Bob Coburns, I think of the Rick D's, I think of the Scott Shannons, I think of the Dr. Dementos, and these people that just blaze these trails in radio land. And yeah, and it was
I
just
saw Scannon last. I saw Scannon Shannon about 3 weeks ago.
no,
Oh, wow.
no, it was a blast. And I mean, and
Old.
yeah. I mean, they're still doing their thing, but I mean, they're not. We used to be celebrities, and golly, man, what instrument do you play?
Pretty much all of them.
Well, you were probably
Piano, drums, and all that.
you were probably kicking the ladies off your bootstraps pretty much 24 hours a day. Because I remember just being on radio. I used to get some ass just from radio. If you were in a band too, we were just talking to Kip. I said, you walk into a bar with an empty guitar case, you're getting a phone number. Heck, if you could play every instrument and you were on radio, you were double dipping, my friend. Good for you.
Well, let's go forward. Where do you think it's going?
It's going where it's going, and we're there.
They're making money off of it, but how?
Well, they're not making money off of it, and that's the problem, Gary.
Yeah.
The last 3 companies I worked for all went bankrupt. The problem is this: we got these frequencies, right? And these frequencies are like stores. And if we walk in a store and no one's walking in your store and it's empty, you normally close the store down. Well, it's cheaper now to leave the store open and not sell anything than close it down, because you're not going to close down these frequencies. It's too expensive, and it's too difficult to get these frequencies out there. So all of a sudden, if a 99.5 or for 94.5, whoever that is in your particular market,
we don't even know who they are now.
They're not making any money. They don't close it down. What they do is they go in, they hatchet it up, they cut everything back as possible. They start syndicating every possible show, because they don't have to pay those syndicated shows. If you're an ESPN affiliate or a CBS affiliate or a Fox affiliate, you're just running those Fox shows because you don't have to pay a local. You're not paying out $300,000 or $400,000 worth of income anymore to your local job. Hell, we had at one point on Jocks, our payroll was close to $1 million. Okay.
Yeah.
Our morning show was 500,000. I was making 2. So
Paul Feinbaum was the afternoon drive at that time.
So we had $1 million in payroll. Now you can run a radio station with zero. Zero.
Wala
So
no tingnan mo niya.
I mean, so there's no reason to listen anymore. Those jocks that we used to listen to in the afternoons and evenings and the mornings, and used to be the morning zoo. And
who were
yeah.
the who were the competitors there? There's always competitors. Who were they? At Larry Lujack, Chicago radio, West Coast, North Coast, Fives, what where did they go? But they're out there. But I don't think they're in America. I think there's a lot of outside pressure for because it's just the way it's going. I can't understand it, but I know it's happening.
Well, and I think, you look at your market size, Birmingham, I think was 51st when I got here. Now it's 60th. And obviously you want to be a top 50 market. That's where you're going to make your money, or at least that's the way it used to be. And so if you were in Birmingham, like Mark and Brian were, and you did really well, you went to LA and made $1 million a year. If you're Rick and Bubba, you start syndicating all over the place, because once syndication, and let me tell you what happened. It happened in the George Bush administration, where you could own one AM and one FM station. Gary, you'll remember this. You could own one AM and one FM, and that was it. That kept us competitive. Then they agreed to say you could own two FMs and two AMs. And that was the George Bush administration, the first. And then they came up with this harebrained idea that you could own 40% of all income into a
that
marketplace.
changed the game.
Well, how the hell do you know what the 40% is? Because one book you may have 40% of the revenue, the next book you may have 60% of the revenue. You pull it back, and so you did these things called LMAs, which are lease management agreements, which means you'd spin off one of your radio stations to another company that was really your company. You'd buy your own radio station. All the operating costs and everything would be associated with the original, but it's called an LMA. So you could basically push, and then as soon as your revenues went under 40%, you'd bring it back in. Yes, it's confusing, but that's how it worked. And so when you had all these huge conglomerates and everyone started buying 6 and 7, 8, 9 radio stations, then you throw in HG channels, there's no competition. There's no reason. I mean, Kip and I are probably one of the two most well-known people in this market. If not because we've done radio forever, just because we've been here forever and people know who we are. And Kip and I repeatedly have asked people, not to say that we need this, but we want to be everywhere. And we both have an affinity and a love for terrestrial radio. There's nothing better than sitting in an office.
I'm still doing a couple of shows on it.
Nothing than having a producer there and answering phone calls and stuff. It's great. It feels good. It's a back scratcher, right? And as opposed to sitting in a master bedroom and creating your own radio station like I've had to do. So we're doing those things, and we would walk into a station and go, listen, you pay us $0. We don't want any money. Free. Just give us 2 hours. And let us do a radio show for you.
So we can promote all of our other things.
Let us do a 2-hour radio show, and in turn, let us sell a couple of those spots so we can make a little money on the side. Let us make $20,000 or $30,000 on the side. You can't find one radio station in this market that's willing to give two local guys who have over 100 years of experience a 2-hour show on a news talk, on a sports talk, on any talk in this market, because they don't have to do it. And that we'd be willing to work for free. That's where we're at right now.
We're almost both too ugly to be in television.
Well,
well, Tony and I haven't stayed away from that either. We have a Saturday morning show.
I've seen him without the hair. If you've seen him at the hair, a completely different guy. Scary, actually.
Yeah, they say that radio's you got a face for radio. But if you could be, I don't know, TV's even changed a lot too. I mean, I've worked at a lot of TV stations, not worked for them, but I've been on them. And I remember it was like a fire anthill of activity. There were 30 or 40 different people. There were camera people. There were people yelling, producers. I mean, it was it was news talk. What was the television show? The news talk with William Hurt in it. It was, I mean,
broadcast news.
Broadcast news. I mean, it was unbelievable.
One of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah, and now I walk in the studio this morning, And I wouldn't even know there was a TV program going on unless, I listened uptight because there's some whisper going on. I see Janice and Mike
Yeah.
Deverly, and they're running everything. They're doing the teleprompter themselves. They're running their own cameras. They're running everything themselves. They do everything by themselves with their feet, with their hands. They don't need all that stuff. And so, those people used to be television stars too. They used to be big stars.
Well, when the short term that I tried to teach, have you done that? Besides the other
No, I have not. I have not. I have never gotten really into the.
I won't because it just drives me crazy. I can't believe that it took look at us. How long did we do this before we got good?
Mhm. Yeah.
Well, and let me change the track a little bit, Gary, because I wanted to give you some acknowledgement. Tony just mentioned Rick Dees, who was in Memphis at the time that I went to college there, and I started doing sports updates on his show on WHBQ way back in the day. And Rick Dees, of course, from doing his little spoof bits in his show and little different comedy pieces, hit the jackpot big time with Disco Duck, wound up in Hollywood, has syndicated shows to this day, has been inducted into the Broadcast Hall of Fame. And I can tell you, after working with Rick and hearing the different kind of things that he created and having the opportunity to be front and center for most of your career in Atlanta, I think a lot of the things that you guys produced as comedy bits and spoofs and with your musical background, I still remember some of those very well. And I thought that the content that you cranked out in those days was superior to Rick's, and he just, is in the right place at the right time to hit the jackpot. And a lot of the things Tony pulled here, you'll be amused by this. When Tony came to this market, within the first couple of months, he sat on a billboard for 18 straight days because Alabama was in a losing streak and vowed not to come down until Alabama won a football game. And he was up there almost 3 weeks. So, I mean, you guys did some fantastic things that should have got the notoriety. I mean, it's just how, I guess, where the wheel spins. But talk about, I know you guys really, that was really a big thing in your shows, Gary, was not just music, but you guys did a lot of comedy bits and a lot of different creative things that I thought were fantastic.
I was listening to some, I happened to have a friend who sent me one of the first things we did when I came here in 1970. And it was like, oh my God. I mean, I was going, I got to polish that. I got to bring this up. And I rolled on myself. I remember thinking that I'll have to roll on myself and I'll get it going and I'll get it going, get it going. And then I met Willis and we did that and we did
Willis, I forgot
with that. And it just did it. If you do I think the major thing that we can do to an audience is to accept them. It's not a matter of them. Oh, I wonder how they're going to like me. No. That's not there. It's not a matter of trying to impress them. It's a matter of becoming them. And that had everything I did after I learned this. I did that. I said, I got to accept this audience. If you accept them, they'll die for you. And it's not all the stuff, all the paper and all the money and all the stuff. It's just difference. It's a love. And I think all three of us have people who love us, and I hear them and they, oh, Gary, I still did this and I still did that, and I'm going, what? I don't remember doing that. Oh yes, you did. I've had people, hey, you've done that. You don't remember there? Come on, and you got to get their hearts.
Tony, Gary will be blown away probably that I remember this. I don't know if he even remembers it because it was so long ago, but there's a song that sticks in my, you guys did a spoof song on your show probably in the late 70s, maybe right around 1980. And it was hilarious. It was about a guy who wakes up and his wife is gone, his car is gone, his dog is gone, his bank account's been cleaned out, and his best friend's missing. And the chorus was, I'm trying to untangle the weird mystery of the Buford Triangle. And I still,
I forgot it. I forgot a lot of those years.
Yeah, well, and that's understandable, but I mean that stuck in my mind forever because I thought that was the most clever song ever. In the height of the Bermuda,
Bob Card, God rest him, he wrote that.
That was hilarious.
And I can't all the thing. That was it. It's I've always been a big team player. And I'm not like Scott Shannon or some of the other big guys. Scott is very isolated when he does things.
Mhm.
I am like, pull my shark down or whatever.
Yeah, it's for the good of the show. It's not your own personal ego.
It's not really a show. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the element that's missing. The egos have become so big that, I know Tony and I, and that's one thing I think we're kind of kindred spirits, Tony, because we really look for things that, will be pleasing to our audience without it. And that doesn't necessarily mean magnifying ourselves into some kind of, bigger than life images. We're just looking for things that work, that entertain people.
Well, at one point or at some point, we lost our audience, and it's funny because I saw someone out the other day selling radio, and they're like, "Hey, we've got a 12 share," and the guy said, "Well, 12 share is the same thing you had, 7-8 years ago," and he's like, "Yeah," he goes, "Well, that's fantastic." Well, 7-8 years ago, they had a 12 share of 130,000 people. Now they have a 12 share of 35,000 people.
Yeah, a little
So
bit different.
they still have 12% of the marketplace, but a third of the audience is listening that did 10 years ago. So it still looks good, but it's not good at all. Gary, you were talking about, enveloping the audience, and Paul Feinbaum has done a masterful job at that, which by anyone's imagination, it's just amazing because everyone said that'll never work. I heard for years that how important listeners were to put on the air because you sounded connected to your audience, but then I was always told that your listeners were less than 1% of your listening audience, and they weren't important. As important as a listener would call in and would go on a rant or do something and they'd be great, then you'd have some idiot that just would absolutely annihilate, a really good run for an hour. And so, it is what it is. But I remember getting home from radio or getting home from my radio class in high school, and I'd call the request line, 74 Rock,
You
74
had a radio class in high school?
Yeah, we had WLHS, Lakota High School. We had a radio
How about
station in
that?
high school, a little 10-watt station. Yeah, that's where I got my start in radio.
Snapper.
Yeah, I was actually, and I actually got a job in commercial radio when I was a sophomore in high school. I was working at a little shack up on the hill in Hamilton, Ohio, called 96 Rock. So yeah, I mean, we've just alienated it, our listening audience to the point now where Magic starts Christmas music October 1st, and it's the #1 station in the country because they're playing Christmas. It's not because of the talents, it's not because of the jocks. They say they don't need us anymore, and I guess they don't. They'll go down with the ship, but I mean, we're still out there, we're still doing things, and we're still bringing. But now you got all these other people that everyone's got a personality, everyone's got an opinion, everyone wants to do a show. There are, and I told Kip this, there are 150,000 new podcasts that are coming out every year. 150,000 new podcasts.
Broadcasters or
Just podcasts. Podcasts. Out of those 150,000, there are probably about 50 that make it more than a month. Anyone can get it.
4 episodes is the average.
Yeah, anyone can get it. Anyone can get a microphone, and a computer and start a podcast. Anyone could do that, and then put it up on YouTube or put it whatever, because you don't need a stick, you don't need an antenna anymore, you don't need a radio station to broadcast. You can broadcast anywhere in the entire world. All you got to do is put it up on YouTube, and you got yourself, there's your radio station.
Yeah.
So, but people also realize that when you used to have 20 radio stations in Birmingham, now you've got 20,000 individuals all vying for that same piece of pie, and it's unless you're doing it for fun.
Birmingham now?
What are we? 400,000 metro, and with rural, we're pushing about 850, I think it is, something like that. But
Mhm.
market size is about 62, 61, 62. It was
Only
50th when I first
because
got
you
here.
guys shared, and
Yeah.
did you guys come up in the same station or what?
No, I actually met Kip through, I guess it was the Birmingham race course, was it not,
Yeah,
Kip?
I've had a real job all these years too, which is kind of scary that I've still been obsessed with all my broadcasting properties. But I was really blessed, Gary, by getting into an industry that I could be in marketing and management, and I always had the opportunity from those particular operations to have access to radio and television. So for 40 some odd years, I've been able to have a regular broadcast presence, and I'm still involved in the racing gaming business. Our racetrack here has basically converted into a
Oh,
casino operation, so I'm still the regulator overseeing that as director of the Birmingham Racing Commission. But it allows me lots of time still to pursue broadcast opportunities, which is a real blessing.
Gary, let me ask you a question.
yeah.
I've been trying to
No,
find,
I can't take anymore.
I've been trying to find this answer, and I know the answer, okay? But I want to get your answer. If you get in radio, and I went to college at Xavier, where they have a great communication college. They had a radio station, WVXU, going around the country, 50,000 watt stick, clear channel stick. And these kids would go to school 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years to become a disc jockey. I'm like, you're going to college for 10 years to get in radio. You don't need to go to college to get in radio. All you need to do is be able to read like a third grader, be able to knock on a door and have a driver's license so you get to and from work, and you can become a disc jockey. Obviously, that's changed a lot from having a 6 to 10, 10 to 2, 2 to 6, 6 to 10, 10 to 2, 6 to 10. We used to have 8 different jocks. We used to run 24 hours a day. Now we have 0, or we have a morning show that does 3 or 4 different markets. But I did find that whenever you got into radio, you had a really difficult time ever giving it up. You could get fired 8, 9, 10 times, and you would just show up at another radio station in that town, whether it be as an engineer, whether it be part-time. I've known morning show people that end up being traffic people. I've seen people make $200,000 a year one year, and the next year they're still in radio and they're doing traffic reports. The afternoon
Whatever it
traffic reports
takes.
for a news talk. And I always wondered, why do you think radio people always love radio? Why do you think radio people always want to get back? I tell anyone that's in radio, eventually, I remember you remember Jimbo Wood? Jimbo Wood used to work for I-95.
Oh,
Those guys.
yeah, look.
He tried to get out of radio 15 times. It always sucked him back in. It was like Janice from Friends. She just kept showing up. Every time you thought you were done with her, she'd come back. And I think I know why this is, but I wanted to get your thoughts. Why do you think radio people have such a hard time giving up radio as a career?
You got radio guys, and then you got presidents who are that they just live and eat and preet, and they're in the middle of the stuff. It's just it's what we love. I love music, and I was darn good at it. And
You can say damn on this show. It's okay.
Yeah. You were damn good at it.
Catch me 100 for the damn.
There you go.
Damn. I think that it's just a job. We might come in with a job, and then we start the I need more money. They can't do that. I'd like to. We're evoluting through the engines of millions of people and souls and people that they do it because they like it, not because they have to. I never did it because I had to. I always liked it because I just wanted to be look. I wanted to be look. This is Gary.
Yeah. Unless you ended up being in some type of version of Play Misty for Me, and then you decided maybe it was time to, maybe it was
It was on. It was on from start to finish about 3 weeks ago. And you know what we watched yesterday? Jaws.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Don't show
Oh,
that.
really?
Don't show that to your 16 or 17-year-old and tell them how great it was. Because my son goes,
Yeah.
that piece of crap kept people out of the ocean. I'm like, yeah, what keeps them out of the ocean is the stuff that we read yesterday about the two Mountain Brook gals who got attacked on Orange Beach yesterday. No, I agree with you. I agree with you. I never thought I had a job. It was
I
just,
didn't
it
either.
was
I
so,
never worked for the money.
it was super
I
easy.
worked for the job, and
It was
and
super
money
easy.
flowed in.
Yeah. My first job, I got a napkin. It said 13,947 on it. And that was my first contract. And
Righteous
I was
bucks.
16 years old.
God,
I
I
was,
am impressed with your memory.
well, I always thought that I
Do
made
you
a,
speak my language?
if I could, I thought if I could make $1,000 for every year of my life, if I was 50 and making 50 grand, I was going to be in good shape, and obviously, when you turn about 35, 40, that doesn't jive too well. You can't
Yeah, you
keep up, the
reassess
cost
that.
of living goes up more than $1,000 a year. But I did find that radio people did love radio. I found that radio people were incredibly lazy. Let's be honest. If you
Well,
can get
I
behind it,
wasn't. My morning drive is not crazy.
Lazy.
yeah, no. Anytime you should make six figures if you got to get your ass out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
Right.
But middays, afternoons, I did afternoons for 20 years. I'd go out and do the bar gigs. I do the t-shirt contest and get home at 11 o'clock, in the morning, and then go to work at noon. And so I did find out, but if you were really good at what you did, and you had a personality, and you were willing to be at all the softball games and go work the concerts and get on stage and do, Lynn Park shows and this, that, and the other. And you're willing to put your time in, because everyone, we went this thing where it was funny. We went through this thing where I think it was Cumulus, where they started mandating a 40-hour work
Is
week.
Cumulus in business still?
Yes, they are.
Oh,
Somehow. Yeah.
too bad.
They mandated a 40-hour working week. And this was about 15, 20 years ago. And I said, what do you mean a 40-hour work week? They're like, you must work 40 hours a week. Like they were going to put a time card in when we came in. I said, the reason I got in radio is so I wouldn't have to work 40 hours a week. I said, because you never know how much I was doing 2 hours of show prep. I was doing a 5-hour show. Then I was, go out and working for the radio, because you never turned it off. You were basically representing the brand and the radio station 24 hours a day. And every time I was out, I was Classic Rock 99.5, or I was Jocks 94.5, or I was WQMF, or, I was the party at what, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, but it was funny because, and this, we worked 6-7 days a week for 10, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years. I worked every Saturday for 25 years.
Well, I was out after 2 or 3 days, but that was contract.
Yeah. I mean,
Did you
then all of
have
a sudden,
good agent?
then all of a sudden computers came and they're like, hey, we can computer rate, we can do voice tracking. And voice tracking, we were like, it was like because I had to take a vacation day to take a Saturday off. So when we went voice tracking,
Wow.
I got 50. I did, Kip. I got
must
52
have really
more
loved
vacation days. I got 52 more vacation days because I went from working 6 days a week for 25 years to working 5 days a week. You want to talk about a present? You want to talk about fun? It was fantastic. Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. Guys, this has been an incredible opportunity for me from a nostalgia standpoint to have the great Gary McKee on with the great Tony Kurre. It's been a blast, and I've enjoyed every moment of it. I think both of you, any kind of broadcast chops I have, both of you were serious factors in developing those, and I want to thank both of you publicly for having this great opportunity. And it's been
You
fantastic,
are so
Tony.
cute.
Oh, thank you.
When you sit, bring me back here. I'll show you something. When you sit, you're down like this, and you let you know what that's it? That's letting people do things. When you're big and tired, they don't do it. You understate. You do. I know why you're good is because you put them. I wanted to tell you that because.
Well, I really appreciate that. That's the other thing Tony talks about. Why do we do this? This is one of the reasons I do it, because when I get a chance to have interaction with people and really kind of let them tell their stories, and people that I admire and have a lot of affinity to see them get their just recognition. That's what one of the things that really makes this particular industry appealing to me. I've got a great broadcast partner that does a lot of my terrestrial shows with me by the name of Terry Quillian. She had never been in radio before, but she had been a master communicator, done speeches and presentations. Her sister was, for a time, the Attorney General of the United States. I enjoy the opportunity to have her shine in this format more than I do myself. I kind of look at it as being a stage setter and letting voices be heard that need to be heard. And Tony Kurre and I have a great time doing our programs, and it's just such a pleasure for me. You guys hit it. This is not work. This is something that I really live to do.
Well, Kip, thank you very much. And Gary, it was a real pleasure, man. Let's do this again. I love catching up. I've
Let's do
always,
it tomorrow.
yeah, let's go. I go
Oh,
back
wait,
to,
let's do it next hour.
I go back to the Marconi days, and I remember the Trailblazers and the ones that, I remember sleeping up at the engineer station up in Hueytown. And I remember,
I've done that.
I remember driving home the station vehicle drunk off my ass. I remember all those days, and I'm just happy that I'm still alive to be able to reminisce and talk about those days. But it's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Well, I just lucked the heck out of this thing too. I don't know. I could do it all again. It's all here. It's all there. And like I say, I want to bury, if anybody is out there and wants to do anything in show business, anything, music thing, I'll share this with you. It's not them accepting you. It's you accepting them. That works. I've never say it again, but that's how it works, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and the women.
Thank you, Gary.
Great stuff, guys. Thanks.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.